The NFL legal tampering period begins Monday at 12 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And what does that mean? That means that teams can begin negotiating legally with free agents and their agents. Now, we know that happens all of the time. This is just now the legal time that they can do it 48 hours before the new league year starts on the 12th. But it's an opportunity for the 49ers to rebuild that defensive line. Now, what's ironic is the 49ers defensive line has always been its bread and butter. In fact, you look at their first Super Bowl under Kyle Shanahan, that defensive line wreaked havoc. It was Nick Bosa's rookie year, and just the way that they played in and out that defensive line, that's when T. Ford was somewhat healthy. You had DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead there as well, and it was just atrocious across the board. Plus, when you start getting to the depth as well, just they were constantly getting to the quarterback. Fast forward to this past couple years, the defensive line is completely different. Outside of Nick Bosa, you don't really have any elite players on that defensive line. Leonard Floyd has been out of his prime for a while. In fact, he did not even reach his 9 sacks he's gotten in the several past consecutive years. And then, he's a name, but really you don't have much else outside of that. Yes, you picked up a Malik Collins. Yes, you picked up a Jordan Elliott, which are great depth pieces, but they had them in as starters. And you noticed the drop-off in the 49ers run game. In fact, now they're in the bottom half of defenses when it comes to stopping the run, and their pass rush was just as effective, because if you only have one elite pass rusher, guess what? You just double team him and chip him as well. And guess what? You've neutralized the pass rush. And as the 49ers have gotten older, you've traded away DeForest Buckner. Eric Armstead was released because he wasn't able to stay healthy. You haven't been able to find a complement opposite of Nick Bosa. And now there was a lot of hopes for potentially Myles Garrett could be traded, but he just signed a $40 million a year contract, so he's not going anywhere. Micah Parsons isn't leaving Dallas, and if he does, I doubt he goes to the 49ers, or they wouldn't be willing to pay $40 million a year or $70 million for your two bookend defensive ends. And so now you need to start looking at free agency. Now, the 49ers aren't going to spend top dollar. We've seen that in the offseason with the trading of Deebo Samuel. We've seen that with openly being open about trading Brandon Ayuk. We saw that how Jed York and company are upset that they had to shell out $100 million in cash last year to just 4 players with extensions and restructures. You saw that with the Yorks being open to selling 10% of their organization. We saw that with the Yorks buying a soccer team. And so the question is, how much money do the 49ers actually have to spend on free agency? Now, it could be a marketing move by the Yorks, because we know that they really want to be viewed as the Jerry Jones for kind of the new century. The reality is Jerry Jones hasn't won a Super Bowl in a long time, so it's not a great person to model that off of. But I think in the terms of being in the media all the time, that's what they're aiming for. So I could also see them making a splash in free agency just to do it and keep the media on its toes. But let's be honest with where we're at. The 49ers have Nick Bosa, Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott. You have Evan Anderson, who's a rookie. You have the opportunity to grab a few different players, but let's look at the back end too. We've talked about how they've kind of shown up and how the back end is a strong part. Charvarius Ward isn't coming back, which our hearts go out to him because of just the turmoil that families had to go through. And he's mentioned no hard feelings against the 49ers, but when he comes in, this is the place where his daughter died. So he's probably going to be looking for new scenery. But still, even when he travels and leaves off, you have Deommodore Lenoir, Renardo Green, who came onto the scene last year as a rookie and really showed out. You have Jair Brown, you have Malik Mustafa, Talanoa Hufanga is probably going to go out in free agency. But then you tandem those with Robert Saleh and his ability to scheme things up. I think you have a great future with the back end, which means if you take care of that defensive line, this defense can be absolutely scary. Now let's talk about some options out there that actually fit in the 49ers financial ballpark. A familiar face, Javon Kinlaw, is going to be a free agent. I can see him potentially coming back. He's only 27 years old. They're getting rid of Javon Hargrave, who's 32, which makes sense. Costs a lot of money for absolutely zero production. You have Evan Anderson, who's a rookie, who will still be back because he was a rookie last year. But Jonathan Allen, just released from The Commanders, 30 years old. Joey Bosa is 29. Now let's be honest about some of those. Joey Bosa, I do not pick him up if he is your envisioned starter opposite of Nick Bosa. If he is your answer to solving your defensive line problems, you don't pick him up. Now, if you pick him up as a team-friendly one-year deal with several incentives based off sacks and based off playing time, that's fine. Because Joey Bosa is only 29. You know when he's on the field and healthy, he produces. Fact is, he's only played in 14 games in the past 3 years, which means availability is not his strong suit, at least not of late. Now, he's young enough, he could probably still rejuvenate his career, play another couple solid years, but if history shows us anything, the past 3 years, he hasn't been able to do that. But who knows? New scenery can change some things. So I would be okay with a 1-year prove-it deal that's heavily incentive-laden. Jonathan Allen, 300 pounds, 30 years old, would be a D tackle. He's shown he can wreak havoc, but he's also getting up there in age. Now, yes, it would be an upgrade as far as age from Javon Hargrave, who's 32, down to Jonathan Allen, who's 30. But you do want to get younger, so it depends on what type of contract he's looking for. I could see a 2 to 3 year deal, which is really a 2-year deal, but spread out over 3 years, and then reevaluate when he's 32. Again, Javon Kinlaw is 27. I think that is a wise choice. You go and you get that. But one other choice that was talked about early in the offseason, which doesn't help when it comes to age, but he's only 30 years old, but it is a familiar face, is DeForest Buckner. He's been in conversation specifically for that the Colts might be interested in trading him. He's still playing at an elite level, and I think that's one of those trades where the 49ers kick themselves because, well, as good as Eric Armstead was, he was no DeForest Buckner. One was tier 1, the other one was tier 2, and I think because of the $3 million difference, I think it was worth the $3 million to pay DeForest instead of opting for $15 million a year with Eric Armstead. Now, how do you fix that? You go and you trade for him and you go win a Super Bowl, and I guarantee you all hard feelings will go away. But I think those are the big moves on the defensive line the 49ers need to make. You need to go get DeForest Buckner. Do something splashy there that's going to get the 49ers fans back on your side. That's going to help address the D-line. Then you pick up a Jonathan Allen. Can you imagine a defensive line with Jonathan Allen and DeForest Buckner in the middle with Nick Bosa on one side, and maybe on the opposite side, you have a Joey Bosa with Leonard Floyd. If you keep Leonard Floyd, you get them on rotation. I think that's scary. I think that would absolutely level up your defensive line. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best defensive line in the NFL, but you're definitely going to be in the top 5, top 10 defensive lines, which is a huge step up from last year. And it's what the 49ers need to do. It's not going to break the bank, but it's going to address a major need that the 49ers have going into this offseason. And then when you go into the draft, you address the offensive line. There's a lot of top-tier offensive tackles that the 49ers can address their need to improve the offensive line. Let's face it, Trent Williams is not getting any younger. My guess is this is his last year or next year. And then you need to address Colton McKivitz, like the worst tackle in the game. Okay, let's be honest, 38 out of 40, but there's only 32 teams. But out of 40 eligible tackles, he ranked 38. You need to address the center position. Drew Dahlman is the best center on the market. You need to invest heavy on that side. And then there's the draft where you get 2 tackles. Get 2 tackles and grab a guard as well. Because Ben Barch, my assumption, will probably start at left guard. And he's got a lot of promise. I like Ben Barch, but you need to improve the depth. You need to plan for the future. And if history shows us anything, especially with the teams that went deep in the playoffs, is everything is won in the trenches. That's how you improve your run game. That's how you can stick with the Brock Purdy at quarterback, because he has the time he needs to make the reads, the right reads, and can do the things he needs to do. I don't think it's any surprise when Jared Goff went to the Lions how his game improved, because the Detroit Lions had the number 1 offensive line in the game. Or you can argue Philadelphia, but they're 1-2. But I think when you address those things, the trenches this offseason through free agency and the draft, the 49ers will be primed to go deep into the playoffs. But you have to start there. And we'll see what they do. Tomorrow, in about 24 hours, we'll be able to see what are they targeting. Are they serious about this year, or do they think this year is a rebuild year or a recalibrate year where they don't spend much money and then they go on all in the following year? Who knows? But in just a few days, we'll find out how serious they are about this year and getting back to the playoffs. Well, that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.